Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. And I want to start today by just checking in on your sanity, a quick sanity check.
Okay. I think I'll pass, but let's see.
Because I had a moment this weekend that I think a lot of people are having right now. I was standing in the middle of the grocery store aisle for the snack aisle, which is usually my happy place. And I picked up a bag of chips.
The danger zone.
The best zone. And it was the same brand I've been buying for, I don't know, 15 years.
Yeah.
And I held it in my hand and I froze because it felt wrong. It felt lighter.
Like someone had already eaten the chips before you bought them.
Exactly. It felt like a bag of air with a suggestion of a potato inside. And then later that same day, I'm trying to book a hotel for a friend's wedding, and I see this fine print that says, housekeeping is available upon request for a surcharge.
Oh, that's the new classic.
Right. And I'm looking at the price, which is definitely not lower than it was 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, is it me? Am I just getting grumpy and old?
Right.
Or is the world actually getting smaller, worse, and more annoying while costing the exact same amount?
Well, first off, you might be getting grumpy, but that's a separate issue. On this specific point, however, I can validate you completely. It is absolutely not in your head.
Oh, thank God. I was genuinely worried.
No, you are not imagining it. What you're describing, that feeling of the bag being lighter, the service being non-existent, the customer service line being a 45-minute loop with a chatbot named Helpful Hannah, that is the result of two very specific, very pervasive economic forces.
Okay, so there are names for my pain.
There are. We are seeing a structural shift in the economy. We're talking about shrinkflation, which everyone kind of knows about, and its arguably nastier, sneakier cousin, skimpflation.
Skimpflation. I hate the sound of it already. It sounds like a cheap fabric that itches.
It's actually worse than that. It's the degradation of quality. It's the feeling of paying the same for worse. And today, we are going to tear this apart. We aren't just going to complain about it. We're going to understand the mechanics of it.
Good, yeah. Because I want to know who to be mad at.
We have a massive stack of sources for this deep dive. We are looking at data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We've got these incredibly dense but fascinating academic papers from marketing science published just last year in 2025.
Okay.
Reports from the Consumer Protection Journal, and we're even going to do some historical economic analysis going back to, believe it or not, the Roman Empire.
Which I love. I always want to know if Julius Caesar had to deal with smaller bags of chips.
In a way, he did, or at least the citizens of Rome did. But the core question we need to answer today isn't just what is happening, it's why.
Right.
Why do companies play these games? Why not just raise the price tag and look me in the eye?
Right. If the cost of potatoes goes up, charge me 10 cents more. Don't gaslight me with a bag of air. That's the part that feels insulting.
That's the logical consumer reaction. But the corporate logic is different. The answer lies in a mix of human psychology, a concept economists call the invisible handshake, which is different from the invisible hand, and the actual biology of how your brain perceives change.
Okay, let's get into this. I want to start with the definitions because I feel like shrinkflation is a word we throw around a lot. But I want to know the strict economic mechanism. Is it just making things smaller?
Strictly speaking, shrinkflation is the practice of reducing the size or quantity of a product while the price remains the same, or in some particularly egregious cases, the price even rises slightly.
Okay, simple enough.
But economically, you have to think about it as a manipulation of a ratio.
A ratio, like in math class?
Exactly. The price to quantity ratio. In standard inflation, the kind we all complain about when we see the gas prices go up, the numerator increases, the price gets bigger.
Right. A gallon of gas costs more, the number on the sign is bigger.
Exactly. In shrinkflation, the denominator decreases, the quantity gets smaller.
So the top number of the fraction stays the same, but the bottom number shrinks.
You've got it. The result for your wallet is identical.
Okay.
The unit price, the cost per ounce, per gram, per sheet of toilet paper goes up. But the psychology of how that happens is totally different.
It's stealthier. It feels like a magic trick. Look at the price tag. Nothing has changed. Meanwhile, the product is vanishing before your eyes.
That's the entire point. It's designed to be stealthy. The term itself was popularized by an economist named Pippa Malmgren a while back,
Okay.
though a historian named Brian Dimitrovich used it even earlier to describe a whole economy shrinking under inflation. But now it's exclusively used for this package downsizing phenomenon.
You mentioned this isn't new. I
Mhm.
assume companies have been trying to cheat us for as long as there have been companies.
Oh, longer. If we look at the historical precedents, this is a tale as old as commerce itself. We can go back to the Roman Empire.
Okay, take me back. No packaged goods. What were they shrinking?
They had coins, the denarius. It was a silver coin, and it was the standard day's wage for a soldier or a laborer.
Okay, a solid silver coin. So it had real intrinsic value.
Well, it started solid, but when the empire ran into financial trouble, wars to fight, palaces to build, emperors who liked to party, they couldn't just print more money in the modern sense.
Right, no Federal Reserve in ancient Rome.
So they engaged in coin debasement.
Which is what, exactly?
They would melt down the existing silver coins and mix in cheaper metals like copper or tin. So the coin looked the same. It had the emperor's face on it. It was the same size in your hand.
But the good stuff was gone.
The silver content, the actual value, dropped from nearly 100% to, by the end of the empire, almost 5%.
That is ancient shrinkflation. The package, the coin stayed the same, but the content shrank. That's incredible.
Precisely. And the people knew. They aren't stupid. Prices for goods skyrocketed because everyone knew the coins were junk. It fueled massive inflation.
So it's not a new trick at all.
Not at all. But the most relevant parallel to your grocery store experience actually comes from feudal Europe.
Okay, set the scene for me. I'm a peasant in the Middle Ages.
You're a peasant and you want bread. It's the staple of your diet. Now, in feudal Europe, there was a very strong social custom called the just price.
The just price. It sounds moral.
It was a moral law, not a law of supply and demand. There was a customary price for a loaf of bread that everyone in the village agreed was fair.
So the baker couldn't just decide, hey, wheat is expensive this year, I'm doubling the price.
If he did, he risked more than just losing a customer. He risked a riot. Bread riots were a staple of medieval life. If the price of bread went up, people would literally burn the bakery down.
Okay, so the stakes were pretty high for the baker.
Extremely high stakes. So when a drought happened or grain became scarce, the baker had a huge problem. His costs are up, but he can't raise the price without getting pitchforked. So what did he do?
He kept the price the same.
He kept the price exactly the same. The penny loaf cost a penny, but the loaf got smaller.
And the peasants were okay with that? Or at least more okay with it?
History suggests they were more okay with that than the price hike. It established a precedent that has lasted for 1,000 years. Humans, for whatever reason, prefer a reduction in quantity to an increase in price.
That's fascinating. It's like we have this built-in blind spot.
We would rather eat a little less than feel like we are being gouged. We value the sticker price stability more than the actual sustenance we're getting.
And that leads directly to the modern economic theory you mentioned, the invisible handshake.
Yes, from the macroeconomist Arthur Okun.
Not to be confused with Adam Smith's invisible hand, which is about markets regulating themselves.
Related, but much more about the social contract, Okun theorized that there is an implicit agreement, a handshake of trust, between a buyer and a seller.
Okay, a handshake. What are the terms of this handshake?
As a consumer, you understand that businesses have costs. If the price of coffee beans doubles, you expect your latte to cost a bit more. You accept that as fair.
Sure, I don't like it, but I get it. The coffee shop has bills to pay.
Right. But what consumers hate, what they view as a violation of the handshake, is a price hike that feels like gouging. If a company raises prices just because they know you have to buy it, or just to pad their profits, you get angry. You feel betrayed.
Like when you buy a bottle of water at a concert or an airport and it's $10, you know they're gouging you because you're trapped and have no other options.
Exactly. That breaks the handshake. Now, shrinkflation is essentially a loophole in this handshake. Companies use it to adjust for their rising costs without technically breaking the sticker price agreement,
So they can say, look, we kept the price of $4.99, we honored the handshake.
while quietly removing 10% of the product behind their backs.
Wait, isn't that just a fancy way of saying they are lying to us? If the handshake relies on trust and they are deliberately hiding the change from me, the handshake is broken. It's not a loophole, it's a sleight of hand.
That is the cynical, and many would say accurate interpretation. It's a violation of the spirit of the agreement while adhering to the letter of it. They rely on the fact that you won't notice.
And that's the part that gets me. Why don't we notice? I consider myself a reasonably observant person. If someone stole 10% of my car, I'd notice. Why don't I notice when they steal 10% of my cereal?
It's not because you aren't observant. It's because your brain is wired a specific way. This is where we have to talk about Weber's law.
Weber's law. Okay, this is the psychology part.
Yes. Ernst Weber was a 19th century experimental psychologist. He did these experiments with weights. Imagine I put a 10-pound weight in your hand, and then, without you looking, I add a feather to it.
Hmm.
Would you feel the difference?
No, of course not.
Of course not. What if I added a standard pencil?
Still probably not.
What if I added a 2-pound brick?
Yes, I definitely feel that. My arm would drop.
Right. So somewhere between the feather and the brick is a threshold, the point where you go, oh, this got heavier. In psychophysics, that point is called the JND, the just noticeable difference.
The just noticeable difference, the JND.
Weber's law states that the JND is a constant ratio. For weight, you need to change it by a certain percentage, it's about 2–3% for most people, before the human sensory system triggers an alert.
And companies know this.
Marketers and packaging engineers have turned this into an absolute science. They know the JND numbers for weight, for visual size, for volume.
So they're literally engineering the shrink to be under our biological radar.
Explicitly. If they reduce a chocolate bar by 4%, the weight difference in your hand is physically imperceptible to your nerves. Your brain literally cannot tell the difference.
But a 20% reduction would set off alarm bells.
Immediately, you'd feel it right away. So they chip away at it, 4% here, 5% there, always staying just below the JND.
That feels predatory.
Mm-hmm.
They're hiring psychologists to exploit the limitations of my biology.
It is effectively neuromarketing. They are playing in the blind spots of human perception. And the academic data on this is just stunning. It backs up why they do this.
Okay, let's hear it.
There was a study published just last year, 2025, in the journal Marketing Science by researchers Jansen and Kazinger. They looked at what they called the elasticity gap.
Okay, refresh me on elasticity. That's usually about how much I stop buying something if the price goes up, right?
Correct. Price elasticity of demand. If I raise the price 10%, how many customers do I lose? What Jansen and Kazinger found is that consumers are roughly twice as sensitive to price changes as they are to size changes.
Twice as sensitive. That seems huge.
The numbers are stark. A 1% price increase reduces sales by about 1.19%. So you lose more than 1% of your sales for every 1% you raise the price.
Okay, that's bad for business.
But a 1% size decrease, it only reduces sales by about 0.56%.
Wow. So mathematically, if you are a CEO sitting in a boardroom looking at those two numbers, you are actually stupid if you raise prices.
The math screams shrink the product. It's not even a close call. From a pure profit optimization perspective, downsizing is the safer bet. It protects the sales volume.
Because we notice the price tag, but we don't notice the weight.
And this connects to another principle from neuroeconomics called loss aversion.
Which is that we hate losing money more than we like getting stuff. The pain of loss is stronger than the joy of gain.
Exactly. When you see a higher price tag, your brain registers that as an immediate financial loss. You stand in the aisle, you look at the $5.50 tag that used to be $4.99, and you feel a micropain. You flinch.
I do. I put it back on the shelf sometimes. It feels like an insult.
But a size reduction, that is an abstract loss. It's a delayed loss. You usually don't verify it until you get home, open the bag, and maybe eat the chips.
And even then, I might just think, wow, I must be really hungry today. I finished that whole bag so fast.
Exactly. The loss is delayed, softened, and often completely missed. It doesn't trigger that same immediate pain response at the point of sale.
But there has to be a breaking point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, eventually the bag is empty. Eventually people realize they are being played. The anger must be worse when they do.
There is a breaking point. And that's the risk for the companies. The research shows that while people think they wouldn't mind a small size reduction, the actual feeling of betrayal once discovered is intense.
So we underestimate our own anger.
Massively. It's called the discrepancy between predicted reaction and actual reaction. We underestimate how angry we will be when we catch them cheating.
It's the betrayal of the handshake again. I'd rather you punch me in the face, raise the price, than stab me in the back by shrinking the product.
Yeah, that is a very violent but a very accurate metaphor for consumer sentiment on this.
Okay, so that's the theory. That's why the trap is set. Now let's look at the trap itself. We are in early 2026. What does this actually look like in the wild? You mentioned a grocery shrink ray has been zapping everything.
Yes. The marketing science study covered a huge data set from 2010 to 2020 initially, but we've seen updated data for the post-pandemic inflation era, and 2025 was a banner year for shrinking.
A banner year for getting less. Great.
The study found that downsizing is 5 times more prevalent than upsizing when you look at sales volume.
5 times. So for every family size or bonus size bag, there are 5 other products on the shelf getting smaller.
Roughly, yes. And it's a structural trend, not just a blip. Let's start with snacks, your favorite aisle. A standard family-size bag of chips from major brands dropped from 10 ounces to 9.5 ounces last year.
Half an ounce. That's sneaky. That's probably just below the J&D.
Almost certainly. And the price stayed the same, $4.99. But let's look at the chocolate part, because this was the big story of 2025. Do you remember reading about the cocoa crisis?
Vaguely. I remember hearing that chocolate was going to get expensive because of harvests or something in Africa.
It was a perfect storm. Bad weather in West Africa, Ivory Coast, and Ghana, where most of the world's cocoa comes from, combined with disease spreading through the trees and just a lack of investment in new trees. Cocoa prices hit 45-year highs in late 2024 and 2025.
Okay, so the raw material actually got way more expensive. This isn't just greed. The beans cost more. This is a real cost push.
Correct. The input cost skyrocketed. So the chocolate makers had a choice. Milka, for instance, the Purple Cow brand, very popular in Europe, dropped their standard bar from 100 grams to 90 grams.
That's a 10% cut. That's a lot. That's a big bite. I feel like I'd notice 10%.
You might. It's on the edge of the J&D for sure. But here is the kicker. In many European markets and some U.S. retailers that carry it, the price also went up.
Wait. They shrank it and raised the price. You can do that.
They did. We call it the double punishment. You get less and you pay more for it.
That feels illegal. It feels like they're breaking all the rules.
It's what happens when the cost pressure is so high that shrinkflation alone isn't enough to save the profit margin.
Yeah.
So they do both. They hit you twice.
That is brutal. What else?
Coffee was another one. National brands, the ones you see in every supermarket, reduced their standard bags from 12 ounces down to 10.5 ounces.
A whole ounce and a half.
Think about that. That is a 12.5% reduction. If you are a heavy coffee drinker, that is basically an entire pot of coffee missing from every bag you buy.
And over a year, that adds up.
Yeah.
You're buying maybe 2 or 3 extra bags just to maintain the same caffeine intake.
Exactly. And most people just grab the bag that looks like the bag they always buy. The packaging is identical, just a little less full.
But the category that I find the most infuriating, and you said it was the stealthiest, is household paper products.
Oh, toilet paper math. I have stood in the aisle trying to calculate sheets per roll versus ply versus square footage, and I feel like I need a PhD in calculus.
That confusion is by design. That's part of the strategy. They use terms like mega roll, super mega roll, giant roll, family roll. There is no standard.
So a mega roll isn't a defined unit of measurement. Not at all. A mega roll in 2026 is smaller than a regular roll was in 2010. The name is just marketing.
That breaks my brain. It's meaningless.
In 2025, we saw a major shift across the board. The big brands took toilet paper from 340 sheets per roll down to 312.
28 sheets. That doesn't sound like much, maybe.
It's an 8.2% reduction. So that's an 8.2% unit price increase hidden in the cardboard tube. Paper towels dropped by 10 to 15 sheets per roll. Boxes of tissues went from 160 count to 144 count.
You literally have to be the person counting the tissues to notice. Who counts tissues?
Nobody. That's why it works so well in that category. You buy the box, it looks like a box of tissues, it fits in your decorative tissue cover, but you run out 3 days earlier than you used to.
And then you have to go buy another box. It drives volume for them.
It's an incredibly effective, incredibly cynical strategy. And it's not just groceries. Look at tech. The PlayStation 5 Digital Edition had a quiet downgrade in 2025.
But they do.
The storage dropped from 1 terabyte to 825 gigabytes at the same price.
So you can fit fewer games on it? That's a huge deal for gamers.
It's a massive functional downgrade, but the box looks the same, the console looks the same, the price is the same. It's shrinkflation for hardware.
It's everywhere. In the boardroom, by the way, they don't call this shrinking, do they? If you sat in on a Procter & Gamble or Unilever meeting, you wouldn't hear, all right, team, how can we rip off the customer today?
No, of course not. They have a term for it.
What do they call it?
They call it price pack architecture, or PPA.
Price pack architecture. It sounds so sophisticated and scientific.
It is a science to them. It's the science of hitting a specific price point. The conversation goes like this. Okay, the consumer has a psychological barrier at $5. If this candy bar goes to $5.29, sales fall off a cliff. We must keep it at $4.99.
So they start with the price and work backwards.
Exactly. They reverse engineer the product to fit that cost structure. They aren't starting with how much chocolate should a person get in a candy bar. They are starting with how much money can we get for $4.99.
So the product is secondary. The price point is the god they are worshiping.
The price point is the anchor. The product is the variable.
Okay, so that is shrinkflation. I get less, I pay the same, it's annoying, it's sneaky. But you mentioned something else at the top of the show, skimpflation.
Yes, the insidious cousin.
And you said this was worse? How could it be worse than getting less?
Because with shrinkflation, you are at least getting the same product, just less of it. The chocolate is still chocolate. The chips are still made from potatoes. With skimpflation, the product itself changes. The quality degrades.
This is the paying the same for worse idea.
Precisely. The term was coined by NPR's Greg Rosalsky back in 2021. But some economists and commentators, referring to the Grossman-Stiglitz paradox and the general decay of value, have colloquially called it shitflation.
Can we say that? Shitflation?
I think we just did. And honestly, it fits because the product is turning into, well, garbage. The key difference is this. Shrinkflation is quantitative. You can measure it with a scale. Skimpflation is qualitative. It is much harder to measure and therefore much easier to hide.
So this is about changing the recipe to use cheaper stuff.
It's the food reformulation game. It happens when a company's R&D department gets a memo that says, hey, olive oil is really expensive right now. What if we used palm oil instead? Or pork is pricey. What if we added more water and flour to the sausage?
Ugh. Give me a concrete example. What is in my fridge right now that is lying to me?
Let's talk about guacamole. You buy a tub of pre-made guac. You assume it's, mostly made of avocado.
I assume it's mostly avocado, yes. That's why I'm paying $8 for it.
Well, in 2025, we saw reformulations in major brands where the actual avocado content dropped from 87% to 82%.
That's a 5% drop. That's a significant amount. What did they put in that 5% gap?
Fillers. Modified food starch, more onion powder, more tomato pulp, more natural flavorings. You are paying avocado prices for cornstarch and onion.
That explains why the texture is getting weird. It's getting slimier.
Less chunky.
Exactly. Sausages are another classic offender. In the UK, there are standards for this. A sausage has to have a certain pork content. We've seen brands drop the pork content from 97% right down to 92%, the legal minimum. And the other 5% is?
Water and rusk, which is basically breadcrumbs or flour, so you are buying expensive pork-flavored water and bread.
But is it legal? Can they just swap ingredients like that without a big announcement?
As long as they update the ingredient list on the back of the package in tiny font, yes, it is perfectly legal.
So my only defense is to bring a magnifying glass to the store.
Pretty much. There was a huge controversy with spreads like buttery spreads or margarine. Smart Balance, a huge brand, reduced their oil content significantly, in one case by nearly 40%, and replaced it with water.
40%?
Yes. And customers noticed immediately because it wouldn't melt on toast properly. It just sizzled and evaporated because it was mostly water.
That is disgusting. You're literally spreading water on your toast.
But the scariest one for me is white chocolate.
Oh, no. Don't ruin white chocolate for me.
I'm sorry. White chocolate is supposed to be cocoa butter, sugar, and milk. Cocoa butter is the expensive part. It's what gives it that creamy texture. Well, reformulations have started replacing the expensive cocoa butter with cheap palm oil or other vegetable fats.
So it's just sweetened palm oil?
In some cases, yes. It's just a waxy, sugary substance. And in some jurisdictions, they push it so far that they can't legally call it white chocolate anymore. They have to call it white confection or white bar.
White bar. That sounds like a bar soap. I've seen that. I always wondered why it wasn't called chocolate.
Now you know. And this isn't just about taste, and this is where I want people to really pay attention. This has serious health implications. Skimpflation essentially means you are unknowingly buying a downgraded diet.
Right. Cocoa butter is a fat, but it's a natural fat from a bean. Palm oil is a much more controversial, highly processed fat.
And they are removing protein. When you take pork out of a sausage and add flour, you are removing protein and adding simple carbs. When you take avocado out and add starch, you are removing healthy fats and adding carbs.
And to make it still taste okay, they have to do what?
They mask the flavor loss with more sugar, more salt, and more saturated fats. So the processed food on our shelves is becoming more processed and less nutritious without the calorie count necessarily changing.
So we are getting fatter and less nourished for the same amount of money.
Correct. It is a nutritional race to the bottom, hidden behind a familiar package.
That is incredibly depressing.
Yeah.
But you said skimpflation isn't just food, it's services too. And this connects back to my hotel rant at the beginning.
Yes. The service sector is rife with skimpflation. We call this service erosion. The hotel example is the classic case study of the last few years.
Okay, break it down.
Think back to 2020. The pandemic hits. Hotels stop daily housekeeping for your safety.
Right. And at the time, we all accepted it. We didn't want strangers breathing in our rooms. It made sense then.
It made perfect sense then. But by 2023, 2024, that specific safety need was gone. Did daily housekeeping come back?
No. Now it's opt-in or service every third day, or you can pay an extra $20 for cleaning.
Exactly. They realize, hey, we just cut our single biggest labor cost by 30% or more, and people are still booking rooms. Why would we ever bring it back?
So they used the pandemic as an excuse to cut a service?
Yeah.
And then just never restored it.
It is a managed decline of standards. A J.D. Power study from 2025 showed a 12% drop in guest satisfaction, specifically linked to these service cuts. But here is the thing. Hotel prices are higher than they were in 2019.
So we are paying luxury prices for Motel 6 service.
Effectively. And it's not just hotels. Airlines, air traffic is back to pre-pandemic levels, planes are full. But try to get a meal in economy on a domestic flight. Try to get your bag handled without a fee. The experience is thinner, more stressful, and more hostile.
Hostil's the right word. It feels like companies are annoyed that we are customers. Which brings me to the chatbots, the AI blockade.
CX skimpflation, customer experience skimpflation. This is the AI revolution's dark side.
It's not a revolution, it's a blockade. I tried to call my internet provider last week, and I swear the AI was designed to make me hang up in frustration.
It probably was. That is a metric they track. Companies are replacing human support teams with AI chatbots. They tout this in press releases as innovation and 247 support.
It's not support, it's a maze.
The reality is often just aggressive cost-cutting. The human costs $20 an hour. The bot costs pennies per interaction, and the bot is often incompetent.
So what happens to the customer?
Customer wait times to reach a human have increased 24% since 2023. Why? Because there are fewer humans to talk to. The strategy is called deflection.
Deflection, as in deflecting me away from help.
They track deflection rates. That is the percentage of customers who try to contact support but are deflected by the bot or the FAQ page and never reach a live agent. To them, a high deflection rate is a success. It's a cost saved.
To them, a success is me giving up.
Precisely. They have monetized your frustration.
I hate that. I really hate that.
Yeah.
Is there any other weird example of this? You mentioned reluflation in the intro. What is that?
Oh, this is a fascinating niche one. It affects the corporate world. Reluflation refers to corporate relocation.
Like when your company moves you for a job.
Right. 20 years ago, if a big company moved you from New York to London, they hired professional movers. A team came, packed your entire house, shipped it, unpacked it at the other end. It was a full-service move.
The company man treatment. You were taken care of.
Exactly. Now, most companies give you a lump sum. They say, here is $5,000. Good luck with the move.
And I assume $5,000 doesn't cover a full-service move from New York to London anymore.
Not even close. It might not cover a move across the state, but the lump sum amount often hasn't kept up with inflation. So what happens? You have mid-level executives, people making six figures who are renting U-Hauls and packing their own boxes on weekends.
So the employee is subsidizing the company's move with their own manual labor and stress.
Exactly. The benefit looks the same on the offer letter, relocation assistance included, but the real-world value has collapsed. It is a transfer of labor and cost from the corporation to the individual. It's skimpflation of the employment contract.
That is a perfect example because it's so invisible. Unless you are the one sweating and trying to get a sofa through a doorway, you'd never know it changed.
Correct. It's hidden in plain sight.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a minute because I know running a business is hard. Is this just pure evil corporate greed? Or are these companies actually fighting for survival? I know inflation hit them too. Energy costs, wages, raw materials, it all went up. Maybe they have to do this.
This is the greed versus survival debate, and the corporate defense is exactly what you just said. It's called cost push. They say, look, cocoa tripled in price, energy is volatile, we have a labor shortage, shrinkflation is the least bad option. If we didn't shrink the bar, we'd have to charge $3 more and no one would buy it and we'd go out of business.
Which sounds plausible. It sounds like a reasonable, if unfortunate, choice.
It does, until you open the financial statements.
Here's where it gets interesting. Show me the money.
An analysis by the consulting firm Into the Mines covering 2021 to 2024, the peak inflationary period where all this started, showed that operating margins for major FMCG companies, fast-moving consumer goods, didn't just stay stable. They didn't just survive. They rose significantly.
So they weren't just passing on their higher costs. They were making more profit per item than they were before the crisis.
Yes. PepsiCo saw a 27.2% growth in their operating margin. Mondelez, the snack giant that makes Oreos and Cadbury, saw 24.6% growth.
And these are the same companies shrinking their packages.
The very same. The most staggering was Beiersdorf, a German company that does personal care products like Nivea. They saw a 47.8% growth in their operating margin.
47% growth during an inflation crisis.
That suggests that they used the cover of inflation to expand their margins. They knew everyone expected prices to go up, so they pushed prices up or sizes down more than their costs actually rose.
It's what some people call greedflation.
Exactly. They saw the smoke of the fire and used it as cover to rob the house.
That makes it really hard to be sympathetic to the cost push argument.
It does, and this leads to a massive problem with how we understand the economy as a whole. We have a real inflation problem. You hear on the news, inflation is down to 3%. But you go to the store and you feel broke. Why is there a disconnect?
Because the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, is missing something. It's not telling the whole story.
The CPI is actually okay at catching shrinkflation. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, does weigh items. If the bag of chips goes from 10 ounce to 9 ounces for the same price, they record that as a price increase per ounce.
Okay, so the official number captures the shrinking. That's good to know.
Mostly. It's not perfect, but it tries. But skimpflation, the qualitative stuff, the CPI is almost totally blind to it.
Because the BLS agent isn't tasting the guacamole to check for cornstarch.
Exactly. Or timing how long you're on hold with customer service. The BLS uses something called hedonic adjustments to account for quality.
Hedonic adjustments. Sounds pleasurable.
Ideally. It's meant to adjust for quality changes. Usually it works for improvements. For example, if the price of a car goes up by $1,000, but the new model has a better safety system and standard GPS, the BLS says, okay, the price went up, but you got more car. So it's not pure inflation. It's a quality improvement. And they discount the inflation number.
That makes sense. You're getting more value.
But they rarely do it in reverse. They rarely adjust for degradation. They almost never say, well, the hotel price stayed the same, but the room is dirty and there is no room service, so actually the price effectively went up 20%. That doesn't happen.
So all the skimpflation we've been talking about is just invisible to the official inflation numbers.
It's the dark matter of inflation. It's there, it's weighing us down, but we can't measure it easily. So the formula should be real inflation. What you experience in your life is nominal inflation plus shrinkflation plus skimpflation.
And the government data only captures the first 1.5.
Right, and that explains the disconnect. That explains why the headlines say the economy is strong and regular people say, I feel poorer.
We are poorer. We are consuming lower quality goods and services for the same portion of our income. That is a reduction in the standard of living, even if the GDP line goes up.
Precisely.
Okay, I am thoroughly annoyed now. I feel manipulated, lied to, and I am deeply suspicious of my guacamole. How do we fight back? Can we fight back? Or is this just the new world order we have to accept?
We can fight back, but it requires a shift in behavior. You have to stop shopping on autopilot. You have to become a more conscious consumer.
Okay. Give me the tactical guide. What are the red flags I should be looking for?
Red flag number 1, the bright, cheerful, new recipe label on a package.
I used to think that meant improved taste. That sounds like a good thing.
In 2026, you should read new recipe or great new taste as, we found a cheaper way to make this. It is almost always code for skimpflation. It usually means we found a cheaper ingredient and we changed the flavor profile with artificial flavorings to hide it. Be very, very skeptical of new recipe.
Okay, so if I see new recipe, I should assume more chemicals, less real food. What else?
Unit pricing. I know it's boring advice, but it is the ultimate weapon against shrinkflation. You have to ignore the big package price. Look at the small print on the shelf tag. The price per ounce, the price per gram, the price per sheet.
It takes more time. It's a pain to stand there and do math.
It does, but it cuts through all the marketing bullshit. If the bag shrank but the price stayed the same, the unit price will scream the truth at you. It never lies.
What about online shopping? That's where I get tricked the most because I just hit reorder.
Watch out for digital disappearance. If you have a favorite item in your cart history and suddenly it says unavailable and the app suggests a similar item from the same brand, check the size.
It's the shrinkflated replacement, isn't it?
Almost always. They kill the old STU, stock keeping unit, and replace it with a new, smaller one. By making the old one unavailable, they break the direct price comparison link in your order history. You can't easily see that you paid $4 for 10 ounces last month and are now being asked to pay $4 for 9 ounces.
It is so sneaky. It's a digital sleight of hand.
One more strategy. Store brands.
Generics. Like the house brand.
Yes. Store brands, like Costco's Kirkland or Walmart's Great Value, are often the last to downsize. They eventually follow the national brands, but there is usually a lag of 6 to 12 months. You can often get the old size for a while longer by switching to generic.
Okay, so there's some defensive moves. But is the government doing anything? I feel like there should be a law against selling me a half-empty bag of air.
There is actually quite a bit of movement on this front. Governments are realizing this really pisses voters off. France has been very aggressive.
What did the French do? I feel like they're good at being angry about food quality.
They are. In 2024, they introduced requirements for retailers to label products that had undergone shrinkflation. They essentially mandated shaming the brands. Imagine walking down the aisle and seeing a big orange sign on the shelf that says, "This product has reduced its quantity while the price remained the same."
Oh, I love that. Public shaming. That's fantastic.
It was incredibly effective at generating bad PR for the brands. Carrefour, the big French supermarket chain, actually went to war with PepsiCo over this. They pulled Lay's chips and other products off the shelves in protest.
Did it work? Did the sizes go back up?
In some cases, prices were adjusted to reflect the new size, but mostly it just made consumers aware, which is the first step.
What about here in the U.S.?
We've seen proposals like the Shrinkflation Prevention Act, and the FTC is focusing on deceptive packaging, like when the box stays the same size, but the bag inside gets smaller. That is technically slack fill deception.
So there is some regulatory heat coming.
There is. Germany's consumer agencies are pushing for clearer labeling on recipe changes to fight skimpflation. South Korean studies have looked at consumer inattention to milk carton sizes. It's a global issue. But ultimately, the market is driven by what we buy. As long as we keep buying the 90-gram bar, they will never give us the 100-gram bar back.
And that leads to the scary question. What is the end game here? Are we just going to keep shrinking until the chocolate bar is the size of a postage stamp?
Well, let's summarize where we are. We are paying more for less, that's shrinkflation, and we are paying the same for worse, which is skimpflation. It is a structural shift in our economy driven by cold, hard data, that elasticity gap, that says we notice price tags more than we notice weight or ingredient lists.
It's the value for money paradox. We are rational about price, but emotional about quality. Yet our actions are driven by the price tag we see.
Right. But here is the final provocative thought I want everyone to sit with. We talk about this like it's a cycle. Inflation goes up, packages shrink. Maybe inflation goes down. Do packages grow back?
Do they? I feel like the answer is no.
Historically, almost never. It's a one-way ratchet. But consider the long-term impact of permanent quality loss. Once a hotel stops daily cleaning, and they realize people still book the room, do they ever bring the cleaning back as a standard feature?
No. Why would they? That's just giving away profit.
Once a chocolate bar lowers its cocoa content and replaces it with palm oil, and a whole generation of kids grows up thinking that's what chocolate tastes like, do they ever go back to the expensive cocoa butter?
Probably not. We just forget what good chocolate even tasted like. The baseline shifts down.
Exactly. We are witnessing a resetting of the baseline of quality for the modern world. We are moving toward an economy where good enough is the new ceiling. We might be locking in a permanently lower standard of living, not just in terms of cost, but in the richness and quality of the human experience itself.
That is a terrifyingly sobering thought. We are slowly, transaction by transaction, accepting a world that is just worse. A little bit blander, a little bit more frustrating, a little bit smaller.
Unless we stop, look at the label, and vote with our wallets.
On that happy note,
Yeah.
next time you are at the store, check the unit price. Count your toilet paper sheet. Don't let the invisible handshake pick your pocket.
And maybe make your own guacamole. It's not that hard.
Definitely make your own guacamole. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.